Hello everybody, welcome junior scientists and not so junior scientists to another edition of Virtual Mosey. Now our topic today is pretty awesome. It's all about our calendar and how it is connected to the heavens, where we get our calendar from. It's a really big topic. But before we really get into the topic of the day, I want to make sure that I call your attention to the question that we had yesterday. Yesterday, during our presentation, I asked, how is February 29 different from all other dates? Now, if you know the answer to that question, I'm going to answer it on air in just a few minutes. Go ahead and put your answer down in the comment box, or if you have any other questions for me, please go ahead and write those in the comment box as well. And we'll be certainly very glad to have you answer or ask any questions that I can answer for you. Now, we're going to go on with our program. Now, I'm hoping that you guys know what these things are. Everybody should recognize them, of course. They're calendars. Now, you probably have some of these around your house. My wife, she likes animals, so we have a national park calendar for her. That's a 2020 calendar. This one from 2017 is for me. I like trains, what can I say? So here are the two calendars. Now, you may not know this, but actually there are 40 calendars that are in use throughout the entire world. 40 calendars. Now that's a lot of calendars, but most of them are connected with religious and cultural holidays and keeping track of things like that. But having a worldwide calendar was a special thing. Now the first attempt at a worldwide calendar actually went down in the year 46 BC. It's called the Julian Calendar. And the reason it's called the Julian Calendar is because it was promulgated by Julius Caesar, the Emperor of Rome. Rome had expanded its empire through most of the known world at the time. And so when Julius Caesar proposed this calendar, he felt it important, since Rome was this empire over the entire world, to make sure that all different parts of the world had the same dates, which was very important if you're going to rule a whole lot of different people. So he proposed the Julian calendar, and that was adopted in 46 BC. Basically, it's a lot like the calendar we use today, with a few important tweaks. The problem with the Julian calendar is that it did not match up with how long the year is as the Earth goes around the sun. At least it didn't match up precisely. There were some fractions of a day difference. I'll go over that in a minute too. Well, that caused what we called a calendar drift. And basically, as the years went by, the Julian calendar got more and more out of whack with the seasons. Finally, when we started having spring, when it was in the middle of winter, people knew it was time to change. Pope Gregory, in the year 1582, was the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, actually Gregory VIII. Now, he wanted to have a change to the calendar because people were having a hard time figuring out when Easter was every year. Easter is a floating holiday. It changes different dates each year. Well, they needed a reliable way to fix that. And so Pope Gregory proposed what's called the Gregorian Calendar. I'll actually go over the changes that he made in 1582, but the calendar we have today is the Gregorian Calendar. It's used worldwide. There are still other calendars for religious things, but for doing business and everyday living, the Gregorian Calendar is it. Incidentally, fun fact, when it was adapted in 1582, Pope Gregory had to go ahead and leap forward 10 days. So on the date the Gregorian calendar was adopted, the date before was Thursday, October 4, 1582, and the day the calendar was adopted was October 15, 1582. So just 10 days disappeared there. But you can do that when you're Pope. So let's come down and have a look at the calendar here as we know it today. So this should be pretty familiar to everybody, the way it's laid out. Now, question for you, what does one of these boxes represent here? Well, you know, of course, it represents a day. So where do we get the idea of day? Well, everything that we have in the calendar all originates from what we observed in the heavens and the natural world. Ancient man from the very beginning realized that the sun came up, it gave the world heat and warmth for a long time, and then the sun went down, and then it was nighttime. Temperatures were cooler. Sometimes the moon appeared and sometimes it didn't. The moon changes, but the sun was very regular. The next morning the sun would come up again, pretty much at the time you would expect. Well, we came to call that a day. It was completely arbitrary that they divided the day into 24 equal things that we call hours. So a 24-hour day, of course, is what we know of. Now, what ancient man couldn't begin to believe or understand was that he was on a big ball, the Earth, and that the Earth was turning in space. And that's what actually gave us our days. That's what made the sun seem to rise in the east and set in the west. And incidentally, the Earth turns around once every 23 hours and 56 minutes. So the Earth actually doesn't take 24 hours, it's 4 minutes short. Or actually, 4 minutes short of 24 hours. The difference is that the Earth is moving around the sun. And as the Earth moves around the sun, in the course of a day, it has to turn that extra 4 minutes for the sun to be in the very same place 24 hours later. So that's where a day came from. It was just simply observing the sky and seeing that day and night repeated over and over again, and that is very, very common. Now, let's talk about another way these boxes are arranged. So what would you call this here? I've mapped out one entire row of boxes. So what do you know that as? Well, that, of course, is a week. Now, a week consists of 7 days strung together. You know them: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So where did the week come from? First of all, in a sense, it's not connected to astronomical events. It's not connected to the heavens, but in a second you'll realize it really is. The earliest mention of a week I can find comes from ancient Babylon. They're the ones that came up with the names for the days of the week. Now, the Bible talks about in the creation story that God created the week, the 7-day week, in the beginning of time. Every culture has their different ideas and stories for what is a week. Well, the names of the days of the week are kind of interesting. Now, the ancient Babylonians named each day of the week for one of the heavenly bodies that they knew at the time. It starts, of course, with Sunday, which represents, hey, that's pretty easy, the sun. Monday, not so obvious. What heavenly body could Monday be? Well, if you take Mon and add another O to it, you get moon. So Sunday is the day for the sun. Monday is the day for the moon. Tuesday, now the names we use today for these days of the week are actually connected to Anglo-Saxon names. That's because, of course, we mostly come from England and such. Two in the Anglo-Saxon, that's T-I-W, is their god of war. So Tuesday is named after the god of war. It's named after the planet Mars, which is the Roman god of war. Wednesday is actually for the Mercury, the messenger god, but we call it Wednesday because that's connected with the Norse king of the gods, Woden or Odin. So Wednesday comes from Woden's day or Odin's day. Thursday is in honor of the planet Jupiter. In our language, we come up with it from Thor's day because of the Norse god of thunder, Thor. So Thursday is Thor's day. Friday also comes from the Anglo-Saxon language. It's for Frida, who is the goddess of love and beauty, which connects, of course, with Venus, the planet and the Roman goddess of love. And then Saturday is perhaps easiest. Saturday is pretty much named after Saturn, and that's the Roman god of fun and partying and stuff like that. So I guess that's why we have a good time on Saturdays. Now, the entire idea of a week, of course, gets a bigger thing still. What do we call this entire page? Well, of course you know that as a month. So this is the month of February as it happens to be in my two different years, 2020 and 2017. So the month does have a connection to astronomy. In the beginning, the earliest calendars are lunar month calendars. And what that means is that the calendar is connected to the path the moon takes around the Earth. As the moon orbits the Earth every 28 days, the moon, of course, goes through all of its cycle of phases, starting with a full moon, and then it dwindles down into a new moon about 14 days later. 14 days after that, the moon has grown in size until it's a full moon again. So a lunar month is 28 days. So what's a month on our calendar? Well, it depends. Many months on our calendar are going to be either 31 days long or 30 days long. Well, that's another 31. Or 30 days long. So 31 and 30 are the standard days on our calendars, except for weird little February. Now, February generally has 28 days. But now we're going to actually come to the question that I had for you. What's different about February 29? Well, here we go. February 29, 2020. There it is. In 2017, though, no February 29. February ends on 28th of February. So that's the difference. That's what makes February 29 different. It is the only date on the calendar that does not appear every single year. In fact, February 29 only happens on average once every 4 years. We'll explain why that is in just a second. So the months then are connected with the lunar cycles, although our months at 30 and 31 days are obviously longer than most lunar cycles, which are only 28 days. Incidentally, fun fact. Did you know that when the moon was full, ancient people thought that made people crazy? And that's where we get the term lunatic. So there you go. All right, so some Native American cultures, as well as various religious calendars, are still based strictly on the lunar month, a 28-day month every month. For instance, the Islamic calendar that governs all the Muslim holidays, the Hebrew calendar that governs all the Jewish days, are both based on a lunar month, especially the Islamic calendar. All right, so there's our idea of month and what it's connected to. And while I'm here, you've probably, I've already answered your question here, why February 29 is different from all other dates. So you got that answer. I hope you got the answer before I did. Now, if I take 12 of these sheets and I put them all together, what have I made? Well, I've made a complete calendar for the year, of course, because a year in our present calendar is 12 months long. So putting together 12 months of the year, if I add up all these days, and let's forget February 29 for a second, but in the standard calendar, if I add up all those days in our standard calendar for the course of a year, it's 365 days. So the usual year is 365 days long. But funny thing about it, the astronomical year is the time it takes the Earth to complete one revolution around the sun. Now, the Earth doesn't do that in 365 days. Instead, it does it in 365.21219 days. Basically, it's every day and a quarter. So it takes the Earth about 365 days and 6 hours to make its trip around the sun. That's where the Julian calendar got all scrambled, because that extra 6 hours a year that we were adding onto our calendar is why things got out of whack. To account for that extra 6 hours a year, that is why the Gregorian calendar included a leap day, February 29. So every 4 years on average, we have a February 29 that brings our calendar into agreement with what the Earth is doing in its journey around the sun. So that was the big advantage of the Gregorian calendar. We had a leap day this year on 2020. The next leap day is going to be on February 29, 2024. All right, so that gives you a little bit of an idea about how the year came about. Now, ancient man, of course, realized the concept of a year because he saw the 4 seasons repeating over and over again. And as he saw those 4 seasons repeating, he began to see the pattern that we came to know as a year. As I said, accurately measuring a year was super important long ago, especially for the church that had to fix the date of Easter, but farmers also had to have an accurate calendar system to be able to know when to plant and harvest and things like that. Now, let me show you a picture here that kind of shows the Earth in its travels around the sun. Right now, the Earth is over here, where we are having our northern summer. That's because when the Earth is most tilted, when the North Pole of the Earth is most tilted toward the sun, we went over this stuff yesterday, when the North Pole of the Earth is most tilted toward the sun is highest in our sky. And that's going to occur this Sunday, June 21st, which happens to be Father's Day. That means it's the summer solstice. It's the very longest day and shortest night of the year. It marks officially the start of summer on our calendars. Now, as the Earth moves around, it's going to come in 3 months to our autumn or fall. That's when the sun is going to shine equally on the north and southern hemispheres of the Earth, and that gives us our cooling down period as we get ready to go to fall. Day and night, by the way, are the same length of time here. As the Earth continues its journey around, 3 months from now, it's going to be winter time and the winter solstice. That comes on December 22nd. Oh, by the way, the fall solstice is on September 21. But on December 22nd, that's our winter solstice. So that's going to be the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year. And then it continues on around to the spring, where we have the spring equinox. That's day and night are equal. And on back to the summer solstice. The summer solstice became super important for not only the church, but as I said, farmers to be able to accurately know when the year was. And that's why ancient cultures created some really elaborate structures like Stonehenge to be able to determine exactly when the summer solstice occurred. Churches also, big cathedrals in Europe, are designed with meridian lines that also help them know exactly when the seasons change. So you see, what we know as the calendar today is all connected with the heavens and the natural world. Mostly come up from observation. It's our attempt to make sense of the passage of time as shown by the heavenly bodies. We haven't always been perfect, but the one we got right now is a pretty good calendar. Now, I'm wondering if we have any questions that we need to answer today. Okay, very good. So let's look forward to our next virtual Mosey. To get you excited about that, I have a question for you, a Mosey brain teaser. How do plants know what season or time of the year it is? Well, that's a poser because, you know, plants don't use calendars. They don't have brains. They don't even have sensory tools like we do, like our eyes and ears. So how on earth does a plant know when to do its thing? Well, you'll find out if you tune in next Thursday at 9 o'clock, where we are going to be talking about the seasons and plants. Folks, I hope you continue to discover as the year goes by. Never ever stop learning. It's been a great time to talk about time with you, and I hope that you've learned something. Keep discovering.